Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Welcome to This Just In. My name is Justin. This is my BookTube channel. I'm coming to you from the woods of California. I am actually here at my own choosing, of my own will. I am not stuck in a Richard Lehman novel as I was before. I'm visiting my father and thought I would take this opportunity to shoot a video in the lovely woods that we are surrounded by here. And so I figured this would be a good time to do the pain over joy tag, which I was tagged on through Michael K. Vaughan, Lord of the stately Vaughan Manor. He graciously tagged me with this tag. The tag was originally created by Jessica and Lady Lovestead Reads, and I think this is my first actual having been tagged by somebody. Maybe not. Maybe somebody tagged me on something and I didn't see it. I don't know if there's some sort of tag etiquette that I'm missing. I'm still, still early on my BookTube channel here. I hope I haven't offended anybody that's tagged me and is still waiting for that tag. If you tag me on this one, then thank you. But I only saw Michael K. Vaughan tag me on it. Anyway, let's get to the tag. The Pain Over Joy tag. Our first prompt or question is: do you read mostly books illustrating pain or books illustrating joy? Why? Well, I struggled with this question a bit, mostly because trying to come up with a definition of a book that illustrates pain over a book that illustrates joy. Do we mean a book that illustrates solely pain or a book that illustrates solely joy? Are there books that illustrate solely joy? It seems to me most books illustrate pain, even if they do eventually illustrate joy. So nonetheless, I tend to read books, a lot of horror books, and that's my favorite genre, I guess. And thinking about the things I've read in the past, it seems to be mostly books that illustrate pain. Why? I don't know. It's just the kinds of things I'm drawn to. The gruesome fascinates me, and I have no idea why. But there it is. Those are the kinds of books I tend to read. That leads us to the next question, the next prompt. Do you see books about pain as more intellectually valuable? Why or why not? I don't think that I do. I think that if we take that journey through pain to joy, that is intellectually valuable. Reading books about pain that illustrate pain is valuable in that we can use books that illustrate pain, that give us emotions, painful emotions, allow us to experience painful emotions sort of in the comfort of our own, from the book itself, instead of having to go through those pains ourselves. We can experience the loss of a loved one or some sort of tragedy or some sort of pain through the book itself, as opposed to experiencing it directly ourselves in our lives, and experiencing that pain through the book, through the work, hopefully allows us how to manage that pain when we actually do get to it. And so that's an advantage. That's one great reason to read books that illustrate pain. However, it was also valuable to read those books that illustrate joy, because they teach us we can get through that pain and find some joy at the end of it. At least that's the way I see it. Again, I kind of went through this rabbit hole down this rabbit hole of what's a book about illustrating pain versus illustrating joy. It's like this sort of game, or this trip of categorization, semantics, definitions. But I guess the way I'm thinking it is, books that illustrate joy are books that give us some kind of joy at the end. Maybe there are exceptions that I'm just not thinking of. Children's books tend to illustrate a lot of joy. But they still have lessons in them that are valuable, for adults or even children. Are we ruling out whether or not the books are aimed at children or adults as to whether or not the book is more intellectually valuable? And these questions they don't seem to lead through like a logical problem with a QED at the end, but they kind of do. I guess there's one thing I did want to talk about before I moved on to the next question, and that's as far as the mindset of somebody who might reject a book that illustrates joy. Maybe that pain is seen as more valuable is because maybe it's an opportunity or it's an indication that if we're experiencing pain, it's an opportunity to learn something, and maybe joy is kind of implies a sort of contentment or a stasis, whereas pain, you're going through a struggle, and so you're learning how to cope with that struggle. Maybe that's why somebody might value books that are painful over books that are joyful. It felt like I had to address that. Anyway, on to the next prompt or question. Why do you think major book prizes like the Booker or the Pulitzer mainly award books about pain? I don't pay much attention to book prizes. Maybe once in a while. I don't rely on them for books, for reading ideas. I tend to think of prizes in general as a marketing play. I don't really put much weight in them. Why? Some of the reasons I've already talked about, I guess, which I could have addressed under the same topic, the same prompt. Pain, maybe it is the struggle, is the learning. Joy is the stasis, is where we want to stop and we don't want to learn anymore. So we get stuck in that joyful spot. But I'm not really saying that that's how I feel about it. But maybe that's why people see painful books as more valuable. Next prompt. Do you use and agree with the phrase guilty pleasure? Why or why not? I guess not. I mean, I've used the phrase maybe ironically, as far as the music I might listen to that I find as a guilty pleasure. I like some, Taylor Swift's 1989 album is great. I will listen to it unironically. Books, guilty pleasure. I'm trying to think of it. Now, when it comes to books that I'm not reading, or the types of books that I don't read, maybe, that might be some of the books that, if we go back to the creator of the tag, Jessica, some of the things that she talks about reading that she seems to categorize as joyful aren't books that I really read. And am I not reading them because I would feel guilty reading them? Why am I not reading those books? I've questioned myself. Why am I not reading a bodice ripper romance or a cozy mystery? I don't know. Maybe I should pick one up and read it and see what I can gain out of it and talk about it on this channel. And but if I'm reading a book because it's considered a guilty pleasure, and I'm trying to avoid the label or avoid the what's the word I'm looking for, to not read it so I can prove that I can read these kinds of books and not consider guilty pleasure. I don't know. I overthink these things and I spiral. So I think I should probably stop here and move on. But let's just say I don't use the phrase guilty pleasure. Maybe ironically, I can't see how I would use it with regard to books. Our next prompt is, do you think books centering on joy are guilty pleasures? Not for me, I guess. Back to what I was talking about before. I am not reading some of the books. I may not read some of the books that people might label under joy. Not because I would think of them as a guilty pleasure, just I'm not drawn to them. And again, I can question why I'm not drawn to them. That might lead us outside of the question as to whether or not they're a guilty pleasure. I would not want anybody that reads these kinds of books to feel guilty about reading them. I would hate to think that somebody would read something that gives them joy and feel pain out of reading something that gives them joy. So I for that reason, I tend to not think of these books as guilty pleasures. I would not shame anybody for reading these kinds of books. Next prompt. Do you read in secret? Are there books you read but never talk about because of embarrassment, shame, or guilt about liking them? Now, we've talked about genres that bring us pain, or genres that illustrate pain, and genres that illustrate joy. There are genres that the horror genre can be considered a guilty pleasure, depending upon which circles you run in. I think that some of these same academic and intellectual circles that Jessica talks about in her original video might very well consider horror novels to be a guilty pleasure, in spite of the fact that they illustrate a lot of pain. I, for one, come from a family that, I read Stephen King, as if you've been watching my channel, you know. I've read Stephen King a lot as a teenager, particularly, and into my 20s. And I came from a family that really kind of looked down on Stephen King and made me feel guilty for reading Stephen King. I didn't read it in secret. I was not secretive about reading it, and I would not be secretive about anything that I read for my channel. But they certainly made me feel guilty about reading it at times. Not to say that they might now, but I can certainly see why it might drive somebody to read something in secret if they're in circles or have family and friends and other influences that might make them feel shame for reading it. I wish people would stop doing that. And there is one thing I wanted to address in this regard, and that is there are books that I might feel guilty about having not read, and I might feel inclined to read and pretend that I read them and talk about them on this channel, but I'm not going to do that. I feel a little guilty that I haven't read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, in spite of my love of the horror genre. And I know that there are people who are probably falling out of their chairs or doing a startle or double take having that I am saying this. But I'm not going to read it in secret and pretend that I read it. I'm just not going to do that. So, but I will read it and say, gosh, boy, I really should have read this before, because it's a wonderful book. So that is some kind of a conclusion to the Pain Over Joy tag. The next thing I'm supposed to do is tag somebody on this. Excuse me. I'm going to do this. The warmth of the sun, I hope, is keeping this coffee warm. Seems to be working. Anyway, tag. Who do I tag? This tag seems to be running its course. Seems a lot of channels have covered this tag. It doesn't look like David Wiley has covered it yet, though. So David Wiley, I'm tagging you. If there's something I need to do besides linking you in the description and calling you out in this video to tag you, I'll find out what that is for my resources, and I'll do that. But for now, maybe I'm relying on you just being gracious enough to watch my channel and watching this video and making your way all the way until the end here, and realizing, oh, you've been tagged on this. You've been tagged already and have already done this, just haven't posted it yet. Well, you're being tagged again. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for visiting me in the woods of California. I don't see any crows. I don't see any chains on these trees. I think we're good. Okay. All right. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. Bye.